There's two groups of videos that are emerging from the terrorist attack in Moscow. One is the video put out by ISIS, which is a body cam moment by moment record. It's pretty horrific. It shows the event itself, the atrocities. People shouting Allahu Akbar, shooting recklessly, kill them, shown them no mercy, the infidels must be defeated, with Arabic subtitles. These people were wearing the Federal Security Service uniform and carrying Russian weapons. And that's one video which is circulated. I have no intention of playing it, but I've put up a thing from a Telegram channel which has got a few captured frames. And the other video, which I think probably is as alarming, is emerging of the torture of the people who have been captured and are accused of committing this terrorist atrocity. And one man, for example, is made to eat his own ear, which he spits out, and another man is heavily bandaged and covered in blood. And that ties in very well with Zelenskyy's comments, which we'll get to, about, as Zelenskyy says about the Russians, that they burn our cities, they torture and they rape. This is the Russian military ethos. And yet the Russians claim that it is the Ukrainians who are the Nazis, the Ukrainians who are the villains. I only see a country that has been overrun by a neighbouring state. The facts are interesting. The car, I think there's four groups of facts. And of course there's all these television monitors around Moscow, around streets that I know very well, with the slogans Skorbim, we mourn. But I think what they really mean is we defeat, we revenge, we blame. Ukraine must be declared a terrorist state, says one of the major media organs of the Kremlin, Moskovsky Komsomolets. And it's time to destroy the Kiev regime. All the gang must go. Russia has the means to do it. It's a call to arms. And yet the evidence is not there. The evidence is not there that this terrorist atrocity has anything to do with Ukraine. Flags are being flown at half-mast. Today is a day of mourning. Flags, incidentally, are being flown at half-mast on the British Embassy. 133 people are now confirmed to have died. 150 odd are injured. 114 were hospitalized. But the facts are fascinating. Why would a car be stopped in the Bryansk region and be automatically assumed to be going to Ukraine if its inhabitants have just been involved in some sort of terrorist action, and the inhabitants were much smaller than the terrorists filmed on film and seen attacking people with their Kalashnikovs? Why would a car be going to a border which is stacked with Russian agents and security personnel, almost impossible to get through from the Russian side? Why would a car be going that way? They might easily, incidentally, in that area, be going to Belarus, which would be a border that they probably could cross. Maybe one could credibly claim, maybe the Kremlin could next claim that they are in league with Lukashenko and his cohorts. That is as ridiculous as claiming that these people, that the ISIS terrorists were in league with Kiev. And Kiev, of course, has been bombed and missile attacked again last night. Though that could have been part of the plan anyway. The missiles are stacked up night after night. It's the Russian machinery moves very slowly, and it's probably not capable of responding so fast to a situation. Zelenskyy is furious. Of course, he's furious. He's called Putin and Putin's cadres scum for linking the attack to Kiev. He says, rather than being concerned about your own citizens in Moscow dying or wounded, rather than ignoring the clear warning from the US intelligence, you simply deflect blame. You blame Kiev. Moscow said that Zelenskyy said that Moscow had sent hundreds and thousands of its own terrorists to Ukraine since the war began in February 2022. And here's the quotation. He said, they're brutalizing Ukraine rather than protecting Russia. They burn our cities, they torture and they rape. And if you want to know whether the Russians are torturing, yes, they're torturing these 4 prisoners that they seized from a car in Bryansk and parading the fact. Of course, there are calls from the street to reintroduce the death penalty for terrorism. And of course, it's an absolute atrocity. But is it linked to Ukraine? I think there's very little evidence of that. And somebody pointed out in the comment section that I should read a report in the Jerusalem Post, I think, about ISIS infiltration of the Ukraine regime. Well, I've done so, and I simply don't give very much credibility to it. It's absurd. This is part of a propaganda drive, and it's actually I don't think it was the Jerusalem Post. It's anyway. It's I don't think this is credible. I think there is a sense that my enemy's enemy is my friend, and that the people who have gathered together to fight for Ukraine or against Russia are from a diverse background, and there may well be ISIS fighters among them. But I think there's no evidence that this is an example of that. And there's certainly no evidence that Zelenskyy and the Ukrainians sponsor terrorism in any way. But there is evidence of Putin issuing a directive to the media to find opportunities to blame Ukraine. And there is gathering chatter that Putin is looking for an opportunity to ratchet up the nature and the intensity of the war in Ukraine, and indeed is no longer going to use the term special military operation. So I think this is part of that agendum rather than a reflection of reality. And it's a savage lack of care on the part of Putin and the Kremlin for its own people.